A change of heart and a change of mind. A change of a life and leave the world behind.
Happy Sunday, church. So good to be with you. I'm actually on my brother's back porch in Fort Worth, and I have a very special guest today, Tommy Gary. He is, it's my dad. I'm so thankful that Dad's taken the time to spend with me and do this class today. Man, introducing your dad, it's a lot to think about. As I kind of wanted to think about who Dad was, I know he's been a great husband to my mom. Shout out to Cindy Gary, probably number one fan, second only to Barbara and my mother-in-law. But Dad has raised 3 children, sent 2 to the mission field, has 2 full-time ministers, sent 2 grandchildren to the mission field. So far, we've got still grandbabies coming up, and let's see, how many grandbabies you got in all?
9.
9 grandbabies. He's got, of course, 3 kids, 3 in-laws, but he refers to the 3 in-laws as his own children as well.
Absolutely.
And Dad has sent us on mission trips. He's gone on mission trips with us and loved us and prayed for us and read God's word to us and challenged us for so many years. And so I am super thankful to have my dad and grateful to get to share this lesson 10. We're going through these 13 go statements of Jesus. And this particular one this week is on go sell your possessions. And it's found in Matthew 13, 16 through 22. And I want to read just a little clip.
Matthew 19.
We'll go with Matthew 19. Somebody did their homework. Matthew 19, verse 16 through 22. Verse 21 is the one we're going to really hone in on specifically, but we'll kind of look at the greater context as we go through this. But Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be complete, go and sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Come and follow me." This is a really challenging topic, and so again, I'm thankful that my dad's here with me. He literally sold some possessions many years ago to help me pay a phone bill when I was in Mexico, and so Dad has done this on more than one occasion to make sacrifices, to go, to send, to see the borders of the kingdom extended. And so I just want to start out specifically with the question. I'll refer to you as Tom, if that's okay, Dad. He's now Pawpaw, by the way, but Tommy, as I think about this go and sell your possessions, I want to ask, why do you think that this is hard, just in general? Why do people struggle with that? Why aren't we all, I mean, if this is what we're supposed to do as the church, we see this in the first century church, we see that in Acts, why aren't we doing that? Why do we struggle with that? What do you think in general, I guess, generalized terms, why is that a struggle for us?
We're wired that way. It just seems like we work hard for the things that we've got.
Fair.
We know God wants us to serve people and to come to Him, and He wants us to be working people. He sent His own Son here to this earth, and He was known as a carpenter and worked hard in those things. He was taught a trade
to work,
and all those things. So I think it's hard when we get that mindset of building things up and getting ready for them to convert over to the situation of, look what God's done for me. We should do that. Some in biblical times and some in these times, you'll hear it, we'll give that honor to God. But deep down inside of us, it's like, man, I worked hard for that. I'm kind of proud, if you will. And it's certainly good to be a person of accomplishment.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
But, of course, where the catch comes is where we get caught up in that.
Very good. So there is that challenge of kind of letting go of some earthly things that are maybe special to us and so forth. But I want to also talk about, but before we continue into the text, why is this important to the kingdom? How does that happen? What does that mean when we talk about making disciples? Why is that important that we would go and sell our possessions? How would that help in the kingdom? What does it have to do with anything? Why would Jesus say that? Or what? I realize we'll talk about the text, but in general, why is that important that we would do that as a kingdom person, as a disciple? Why is that good? Why should we?
Everywhere you see Jesus talking to people, everywhere where He goes in or invites people in, he's thinking of the lesser guy. He's thinking of the poor people
Yeah,
all the
good.
time. He doesn't say, we're going to go sit before King so and so today.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. He calls in the beggar, the one that's hurt. He stops things that he's doing because they let a lame man down through the roof, and heals him everywhere. Anything, even if it kind of ruffled his feathers at the moment, he stops and does good for that person. And it's always a person who doesn't have, that couldn't have anything. That keeps them from their humility. They don't have anything that. It's kind of like, well, Jesus, if you don't do this, I'll have to go get a loan for so and so, or I'll have to ask the neighbors or whatever else. It's like they came to him and, Jesus, do this for me. You're the only thing I've got left. We were told the story at the pool of water. He kept trying for years to get in the pool and that sort of thing. And God grants us those things when we do that. When you asked me about this, I looked at it and said, okay, this is a matter of the heart. That's what we're talking about today. If you want to go be a disciple, or if he wants to call you for a disciple, you got to have the heart for it. And then I'm sure through the text and everything else, we'll discuss that quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. I think, several chapters before in Matthew 6, Jesus talks about where your heart is, there your treasure is, and so...
Seek ye first.
Yeah, very good. In that same chapter, Matthew 6:33, Jesus will say, seek first the kingdom of heaven, I'll take care of everything else. Everything else I'll add to you. Just seek the kingdom. And so there's some priority here. Again, there's it really boils down to a heart issue, what you truly love. There's a dependence. But as you mentioned, I love that idea of the whole purpose is just very practical. This is about taking care of other people. He says, sell it and give it to the poor, People need this. And so go take care of them. You've got an excess in your house, or again, if this was a ruler, maybe in your palace or whatever it is. If it's just a rich man, you've got barn after barn after barn. Get rid of some of that, take care of somebody else, and follow me. And so there's so much into this, a sacrifice and so many things. But as you've already kind of cut to the chase, 5 minutes in, class is over. It's a hard issue.
You and I talked about it when we were discussing the beginnings of this, is that we always call this, depending on which translation you've got, the rich young ruler, or the rich man, or even I think the Message even talks about it being the wealthy person, something like that. You and I are the rich young ruler. I don't know about the young part, but we are the rich ruler in this country today. Your average American has more than most of the world has in riches, in things we've gathered, in things we're able to keep in certain circumstances. The government may take it from you in other countries.
Even resources we have.
Exactly, just regular things. So I think Jesus knew that, and he realized that this lesson is going to be teaching through Matthew there. It's going to just be about us, period. It's not just, that we talked about that this chapter of Matthew is telling about the Pharisees, the people who every little jot, every little tittle, every little line, every little rule, every bit of your tithe exactly is exactly what the Pharisees were doing. And he's trying to get them to see it's not about the stuff. It's about how you feel about the stuff and what you're going to do with it. And when that's you and me, it's like, okay, what are we going to do? I thought I put in my tithe. I thought I sent money one time to a missionary who was traveling through, or something like that. No, it's a matter of the heart. You mentioned that I've supported things like that. I'm not a huge money supporter of any of those things, but Cindy and I have always seen to it that you're able to go. And the Lord has always been the one that gave that.
Sure.
There are times that truly that I didn't know how we were going to make it because of the things that we were already responsible for, or maybe even in some cases that some things that we were irresponsible for.
Sure.
I went to the mailbox that day, and there was a check for $200 that I was rebated on something that I'd forgotten about a year ago, maybe, or something like that. And it's not coincidental. The Lord has provided those things. And the deal was, it took 7 days for it to get to my house through the mail, and it took a year for that rebate to get back, but God knew that day was when it was going to be perfect. That's right.
That's good. Yeah. I think when it comes to money, it's a sensitive topic. and Jesus talks a lot about money. He talks a lot about the things we have, and I kind of hear this theme of maybe stewardship throughout what
Absolutely.
Jesus talks about, and handling in our money in such a way that we acknowledge, hey, this is just kind of on loan from. I'm just kind of the banker. This actually isn't my money. This is God's, and I need to handle it the best way I can. Now, we're not saying sell your 401k and make no plans for, tomorrow. Sell your house, put your family out on the street, because then you would be the one that needs. And so we're not trying to get at this idea of impoverish yourself so that you might become everything
Right.
God wants you to be. That might be your calling. I'm not against that by any means either. But I also feel like there's this idea of just understanding what really matters. And when we think about, again, what really matters, we've got some birds chiming in with us here that have
I
some
like it.
opinions on it.
I like it.
But when we think about what really matters, we think about a disciple versus my possessions. Jesus is clearly helping us see it. It's not, again, as you said, it's taking the focus off ourselves. It's thinking of somebody else. It's putting things in their place, if you will, and realizing this. Before we got into this text, though, you kind of had some thoughts that you wanted to share, kind of on the bigger picture of maybe Matthew 19 and how this fits into that. So I just kind of wanted to open it up and let you share what you'd like to share on that.
As I told you, in reading the whole chapter in preparation for this, and thinking about Matthew, one of the ones of what we call the four Gospels, and Matthew, the accountant, if you will, the tax collector, maybe
yeah.
one not in those days not a real respected guy because
Sure.
because people lost their money when he came around.
Right.
What they'd worked for so hard, what they'd strive to get, they suddenly now had to pay it when Matthew came around. And Matthew understood that. He wasn't the kind of person that was just evil and mean and I don't think and went and just grabbed more than he was supposed to get from people. But he understood how people felt about that when he came around to collect, even though it was his job and he knew to do it and that sort of thing. But the first thing he brings up are the Pharisees. Pharisees, as we know, are the legal people, the ones that want everything done precisely. You know a few of them yourself. Hopefully you're not like that too much, but maybe you are supposed to be, because God put us all here on this earth in many ways for all kinds of things. But he makes that important first, that they want to ask him questions. And they ask him, first of all, the very hardest one. What about marriage and divorce? Oh my goodness, we're still struggling to this very day with that one. And each case of it, my dad, an elder of the church for 25 years himself, had to tell me one time when I asked him as a young deacon, how do you deal with marriage and divorce as a church? And he said, on an individual basis. And I'm kind of thinking, that's kind of like sin. We have to deal with that on an individual basis. What was it? What is it? What did it do? I mean, yeah, we lump it and say, okay, it's all the same. God doesn't look at sin any different one way than a murder from an overeating sort of thing there. But they have to deal with it on an individual basis. So they threw that question right in front of Jesus and said, what do you do about that? Expecting him to give him a hard, quick answer and either be way off or give them something exactly like they wanted, one or the other. And he just reminded them that Moses wrote that writ of divorce to make you comfortable, to get you off his back, to
Heart
get
was
you.
hard,
Yeah, exactly. And he said, in the ways of God, those things aren't possible, shouldn't have been done. God didn't make man and woman so that they might possibly be divorced and remarried again someday or anything else. But what he said was all these things that they were looking at, including the next little section where he talks about children. They were saying, get the children away, and he said, no, come be like a child. He was saying there that these things are impossible for you. You can't do that. I can't give you an answer. But God can. And it's all possible through God. And that revelation, even though they really preached that and knew that was a revelation to them that it's like, oh, okay, I get it. There are many things that man's not going to be able to do, not going to be able to think of, and not going to be able to work together, but God will. God can and does. You take the couple that's having difficulty in their marriage, the man will say, I went to work so they could have everything.
Mm.
I worked 2 jobs. I didn't go to all of my kids' ball games because I was working the job so they could have shoes
Right.
and they could have that. And it was always not just the things that they put on and the food that was on the table, but it was always so they could go to an advanced school, or they
Sure.
could have a suit
Taking
on
care of his
Sunday.
family, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the wife
Financially.
and even the kids will say, he was never there.
Yeah.
He was never home.
Mm.
And there starts the problem. Again, it's not a matter of the money. It's not a matter of where we rose to, because we can do that. There are plenty of wealthy people, plenty of wealthy Christians, and plenty of wealthy Christians who support the mission field. You told me the other day that's a missionary's dream team, or whatever what was you said exactly. You're a missionary's dream, because I told you I had a little money set aside there that was ready
Oh,
to do
yeah.
in this COVID
Yeah, to
time,
help
but we
with
don't know what's
Madison,
going
yeah.
for. But Mom and I have money set aside ready to do whatever we need to. And you
Yeah.
said you're a missionary's dream or something like that, and I thought, well, it's just money that I've collected each month that we were going to do anyway.
Yeah.
But the point of it was, we've got it and we're ready for it, and God may need me to have it for something else as far as that goes. But we're thinking about it. It's a matter of the heart. The divorce remarriage situation, it's a matter of the heart. The bringing the children to you is a matter of the heart. And what I liked about that part of it, that center part of the chapter, was that Jesus was reminding us that the whole world loves a baby, a kitten, a puppy, a baby child of any color, creed, or nation. Doesn't matter what. You're going to try to grab the baby out of somebody's arms and love it up yourself when you meet a new person. It's just people who love people. And really the whole wide world is, oh, isn't that cute? When they grow up, or when they get to be the vicious dog out in the backyard, or the cat that you can't stand or something, that's a different deal about how we feel about them. But Jesus is saying, unless you come like one of these little ones, one of these ones I've made new, one of these ones I've made fresh, and they only exist to just think about the beauty of the world and loving me and that sort of thing, you can't come to heaven unless you get like that. Then he gets to the discipling part of it. He's dealing with problems of all sorts and misunderstandings, and getting back to reminding you about, it's your heart I want. It's not your money. It's not. I can do more than you could ever imagine. Before that, with anything else, I can make barren Abraham have more stars and more children than the stars in the heaven. I can give Solomon more funds and money than ever could have been imagined. Not needing that from you, I want your heart. I want you like those newborns. I want you back here with me in that state.
Yeah.
And then he immediately talked about disciples and mission concept in that. And you and I even talked about when Jesus would teach a tough lesson, he would always get his very inner core of people, his apostles especially, off to the side in the back here, and he'd say, did you get that lesson? Did you understand that? And they would usually say, no, I didn't get it. Tell us again. Give us the inside scoop. And that's what he's doing with them there. When they will listen, when it's not just a pharisaical question, when it's just not just, we got this horrible problem that we're dealing with out here, but when their heart comes to Jesus, he says, here it is. Here's how it is. Here's what the answer is. Here's what we do. And he's saying to them, get rid of the junk around you that you're worried about, and come be with me. He to me, it's not meaning go have a garage sale and get care of everything until you're down to shirt and pants, and give your last dollar away and then come over here and sit and wait. That would all be well and good. As the one fellow that he mentioned in the lesson here, he was sitting in church and listening to this same kind of lesson about this, and he just decided, I don't know what that means to not have anything. So he gave up everything and went, what did he say, 2 years, I think, as a beggar. We don't have to go do that. We're afraid lots of times that that's what Jesus is wanting us to do, but that's not it. If he needed to do that for that concept, to understand what the full power of that was, to absolutely not know where the cover was going to come from that you laid down under that night, or where the next drink of water, if it was going to be out of a puddle by the road, or a clean bottle, or whatever else. He wasn't telling each one of us to do that, but if that's what your heart tells you about that, go do that, and he'll take care of you in all those things. And I've got to admit, wasn't my heart or knowledge originally. when you were in Mexico, you were 18, and you went to Mexico with the missions there that you chose, and were there. I called you at one point, and you told me we were talking about tough times, and as you would with Dad, these are things that are going on, and this is tough, and you're supposed to kind of cry out to your daddy a little bit, and I remember you telling me that you had a bag of rice and a bottle of water left for the rest of the month. And as a dad who tries to take care of everything and tries to be set and ready for things, I remember telling you, well, Sean, I think I can scrape around and maybe sell a little something or some of that and get enough for a plane ticket for you to come home. Mm-hmm. You were indignant. It's like, Dad, you don't get it. I said I have a bag of rice, and I didn't know that meant a 25-pound bag of rice, and a bottle of water, and I didn't know it was one of those big water bottles, that goes in there or anything else, which wouldn't have mattered at the time, because the point I was getting is my son doesn't have anything, and he needs me to bail him out.
Yeah.
When I was ready for that, but you told me that's not what it's about. I've got the stuff. It's not about me eating or drinking at all. It's about me being down here on the mission field. I was trying to reassure you I'm okay. That changed my concept of what mission work was really about right there. And I've been a second and maybe third generation supporter of missions before that even, but you taught me more about that than I'll ever be able to learn.
I love how you point out there in Matthew 19, we see God's, you talk about man's heart, but I think we also see God's heart in that of his desire for marriage is a unity, and it is taking care of one another, loving one another. His desire for children, they are accepted, they are loved, they are welcomed, they know the love of the Father. His desire for the poor in this particular story is that they are provided for, they are taken care of. But I think it's important to point out as well, through our brokenness, through divorce, through hatred of kids, through our greed or hoarding or whatever we deal with, God's grace is still at work, and He can still work through our brokenness. He's asking us to grow. He's asking us to push beyond these things, and one of the things that is nearest and dearest to our heart is our money. When you look at problem, whether it's divorce or a partnership, even among siblings or parents and children, money is often a part of that friction. That's often a part of where the problem is. I didn't get enough. You got too much, or whatever it is. And so I see here God saying, people, it's not the money, it's not your stuff, it's not even about the marriage or age or who's running, who's being quiet, who's being loud. It's about loving people, and that's really the heart of God.
It's really responsible to see that when the rich young ruler came to him and he said, what should I do? And he said, well, do these things. Well, the things he began to tell the rich young ruler were the 10 Commandments. And he didn't tell him all of them. He only told him the ones that had to do with relationship. I think that's real important to see right there. He was seeing that. I mean, he wanted him to see, the rich young ruler to see, that I feel that you are not getting the point about what I want out of you, about what I want you to do with other people, because you've got it all already. And the thing you're saying to me is, yeah, I've done all that, but what do I need to do to be perfect? And he just ends it with saying, you can't. And boy, that would enough from Jesus, who they're beginning, some of them, to realize this is the guy it's all about. This is the one sent from heaven. This is Emmanuel. He's coming to save us. From those people that are beginning to see that, and to hear that, just if they'd stopped right there, it's like, I'm lost.
It's over.
It's just over.
Yeah.
But he said, but God can, and God does, and God will. That's where that break is between those two, is where we begin to have faith, we begin to have humility, we begin to have a heart that is for God. Yeah, love God all your life, but somewhere along the line you begin to realize that you've got a heart for God. You'll take what He gives, even if you don't understand it today. I could quote you a million different preacher stories that I've heard over the years, that how they were tested about certain things, and how they held on to their convictions in some way, and somebody said, yeah, I know, I was watching you. You know, I was just waiting to see if you'd really hold your strength, hold your faith. You probably even have some like that yourself, that there's always somebody who's saying, that was a test on you. You know, and of course Satan's doing that to us too all the time. And maybe I don't know, maybe an extra raise or something else, maybe that ability to buy that Lexus this year instead of the Chevy or something like that is where that test of those things are. And I'm not saying don't buy that Lexus. Great, if you've got that and you can do that, but everybody who really has the heart for missions and God funds them to have more things, you'll see them doing, even though they may buy the Lincoln Navigator for themselves, they'll be doing more in the mission field, and quietly, usually, than anybody else realizes, because they know where it comes from, and that's why God keeps blessing that situation too. They know where it comes from, and He's ready. You just try, as He said in the Scripture, try to outdo me.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't do that at all.
Right. As we kind of wrap this thing up, put a bow on it in the next few minutes, I want to kind of talk a little bit about practicality, because again, you can come away from this with the two extremes. The one extreme of I'm just going to sell everything I've got and be a beggar on the street.
Yeah.
The other extreme of, well, that was him. This doesn't really have anything to do with me. But I think there's some applications here, and so I want to kind of brainstorm a little bit, toss it around a little bit here, and think about, what am I supposed to do with this? Jesus told this particular man, He didn't command everybody, every disciple, to go and sell everything, but He commanded this particular man to go and sell his possession and give it to the poor. What does that mean for me? What kind of the lesson is, go sell your possessions. So what practicality, what applications can I, Michael Sean Gary, in the 21st century, find out of this story?
Every one of us, every day, is a disciple. If we're claiming Jesus and claiming Him as we're supposed to, every one of us is a disciple. You meet people at the gas pump, you meet people at the grocery store, you meet people at the restaurant. Even in these times of COVID, you're meeting people in places to where you think, well, I'm not able to get out. I can't go do my door knocking. I can't go on a mission field. But there are opportunities given to us every day. And I told you recently, I've had the ability to be at the church in a working function almost every day over the last few weeks. And I know a minister who has brought in random people and baptized them. I've helped him. I've been his cameraman for the video several times recently, and it's not a campaign he's on. Wherever he meets people, he loves God's people, and it's not one of those things where he says, "Have you met Jesus? Do you know Jesus?" It comes into conversation because that's what he believes in and he's about. And I told you a deal. I even told a lady the other day for some things that she was talking about, and I said, you need to be right over there in that church. They got it. The praise, the thing that you can do, the mission work that you can be involved in. And this was a person I met in a situation where they were coming for food. Right. You know, they were wanting the most basic of things. Yeah. And I'm telling you, we got that. We'll do that. But the big deal is, you just need to be right there in that church, and here's why. That part comes easy. To me, going and knocking a door and having a pamphlet in my hand that's a thing that I'm supposed to say and all, they're all well and good. If that works for you, that's great. But knowing that I got to be a humble man before God, because He is, and He is more than I'll ever be, but because He wants me to be that way. He doesn't want me having things that encumber me. Now, if I can have a lot and it doesn't encumber me toward the relationship that He wants with me, that's great. Frankly, I personally don't know if I could have been a guy who had a lot of wealth and riches. The Bible says it's really hard. It's really hard. Think of poor Joseph. I mean, he was over everything, and all that land had all the food, all the stuff, and he'd served God and been put over all that. when his brothers came, and it was pretty hard for him. He couldn't give them enough stuff to go back. He couldn't do enough things to get to see his father again and all that. His heart was really humble when he could have said, "Yeah, you guys tried to kill me. You took away everything that I had just because Dad loved me, seemed to love me so much." Those are the kind of things we've got to do and be every day. This is God. This is what He is, and what I can tell you about Him. That's what works in my life. That's what makes it good for me. They're already there in some situations saying, "Man, you sure smile a lot," or "Thank you for that dollar tip." You know, I go to Sonic and buy a Coke Zero at Sonic on their happy hour price for over less than half of what it is, but I always give at least a dollar tip. One thing I'm thinking, I saved that much to start with. I'm not a fancy tipper, or that's not a big deal or anything, but I see the difference in the young kids' abilities to appreciate things out there. When it's a hot, hard afternoon, they're already only making $7.50 an hour anyway for doing that, and they're running back and forth and getting gripes of all sorts. When somebody was nice to them, that's where, to me, He's talking to us about this: is kindness, humility, just having His word on your mouth all the time. I don't have to be standing on a pedestal screaming, "You need Jesus," every second. If that's what works for you and you're able to do that, okay, do that. But I need to be kind. I need to be humble. I need to say that it's all about Jesus, and He wants a relationship with me.
Very good.
That's disciples. That's going to me. Now, there are all kinds of big plans and big things to do.
Sure.
Mission fields everywhere out there. There are men who've been big names in doing that. But you and I have to do that every day.
Yeah. It really boils down to the way we treat others.
It is.
And again, our perspective on what we have, what other people need, and having more of an eternity perspective than a momentary perspective. So I want to thank my dad so much for
Enjoyed it, brother.
for being here with me today. Our prayer is always that you are blessed
Yes.
by the things we share, by the things we talked about. Our objective is always to point to Jesus. Our objective is always to say, follow Him, listen to Him, be obedient to Him. Paul says, the Hebrew writer says, fix your eyes on Jesus. Paul says your attitude, your mindset, your heart should be just like Jesus. And so I want to challenge you today, throughout this week, church, to really fix your eyes on Jesus, whether it's stuff that maybe separates you from Jesus, or your relationship with others, or whatever it might be. Put those things aside to follow Christ wholeheartedly. And so we wish you a blessed week as you live out your faith in Jesus Christ.
If you want to go up, you gotta go down, my brother, and pray. If you want to go up, you gotta go down. If you want to go up, you gotta go down.